Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on what time you will be watching this presentation. My name is Balzhan Orazbayeva. I'm the Manager of Strategic Initiatives at UIIN, University Industry Innovation Network, and I'm here today to talk to you about social innovation and social entrepreneurship as part of the Urban Good Camp program. Well, it is my pleasure indeed to touch upon such an important topic. And I think it has a direct connection to all of the urban challenges that we can collectively solve. So hopefully you will be able to get some insights that you may find useful for some of the work that you're doing in your cities and regions. Just a few words perhaps about myself, just before we get into it. Well, in my role of Manager Strategic Initiatives at UIIN, I work on the topics such as university business collaboration, university city collaboration, and pretty much everything that comes to external engagement and to entrepreneurial development of universities, together with the stakeholders in the regions, in bigger ecosystems. And I think the topic of urban development also fits into this equation quite nicely, as we believe that we can solve urban challenges collectively through symbiotic collaboration between different stakeholders, including universities, citizens, industry, governments, some local partners, communities, and so on and so forth. But what is my connection to social innovation and social entrepreneurship? I used to teach at the university, and I still do as a guest lecturer. And the topic that I have been exploring was social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And I find this area quite fascinating because for me personally, this would be more so like a philosophy that I hope that we can uncover together. But I think it's also a pretty neat tool to solving some of the pressing challenges that we face in our society. So what we are going to explore today would be a few topics. So we will start by looking into different types of definitions of social innovation. Then we will try to see what social entrepreneurship actually means. And the other topic that we will try to look at would be social innovation process. Why we're doing it, it's more so because we would like to give you an introduction to the topic and also give you a food for thought, just so that you perhaps may understand for yourself in what way this could potentially benefit some of the work that you do to solve some of the urban challenges in your cities. So really just looking at those concepts as a potential process and as a potential tool that can help you in the work that you do. But let's just start with this quote. So I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And this is what I think defines social innovation quite nicely, because what is it really? There are so many different definitions out there. Everyone has their own understanding. And this is what actually you will hopefully see also by the end of this presentation, that there are indeed many different views and angles that social innovation can be considered at. And this is also something that I believe could help us to perhaps create our own understanding of what social innovation could potentially mean to you in the context that you are working in. Hence the, solving collective challenges, city challenges, urban challenges through potentially social innovation as well. The Garden of Eden is no more is something that we have heard from Sir David Attenborough at Davos 2018, and as he was delivering his verdict on the destruction that humanity has inflicted on the natural world. Sir David also offered hope, noting that we humans are a problem-solving species, but he also reiterated that we have just a decade to solve climate change. And I think this is also something that we are now experiencing in a full swing, with all the challenges that we face these days when it comes to climate change and some of the environmental issues. But while a few of us should need reminding on how pressing the issue of fighting climate change is, what surprised me was how this concern permitted all aspects of the conversation on sustainable development at Davos quite generally. And much was up for the discussion, really, from inequality, biodiversity loss, and the challenges of reskilling in the face of automation, to global governance, city challenges, cybersecurity, food systems, and the future of the financial system, just to name a few. And this is just to show you as well how the challenges that we're facing are in fact interconnected, and that requires a new, perhaps even quite revolutionary approach to addressing some of those very pressing issues. But let's just take a look what actually social innovation means also in the political context. So why social? Why should we care? Why is it so important for us to be so concerned about this social aspect of all of the issues that we're talking about? So just to start with, let's just take a look of what is going on here in Europe, what some of the political agendas that we are facing these days. So here I would like to present you the European Pillar of Social Rights. And this is what European Commission has proposed as a response to some of the pressing issues, delivering on the principles and rights as a joint responsibility of the EU member states, EU institutions, and social partners and other involved stakeholders as part of this European Pillar of Social Rights. And that includes 20 key principles. And that touches upon social, financial, and political concerns, like, for example, unemployment, corruption, or poverty. And some of the more present, depending on the location, social issues, but that should become a top of the political agenda. And the European Pillar of Social Rights is indeed about delivering a new and more effective set of rights for citizens that builds upon 20 key principles across 3 categories. And if we will take a look at those, then we will see that I'm also talking about equal opportunities and access to labor market, fair working conditions, but also social protection and inclusion. But we're also very much familiar of some of the other agendas that are existing at the moment. And for example, there was a Green Deal that has been issued a few years ago, but also some of the agenda that addresses higher education and research specifically, where higher education institutions, for example, are called upon to become more embedded in their regional ecosystem, to become more responsible also for some of the social issues that the regions, the cities, the governments are facing everywhere in the world. But this is just, again, to give you an example of how this interconnectedness actually is also embedded, of course, and it should be in the political agendas. Another very, I guess, familiar example for everybody would be the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And these goals are a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. So here we're dealing with 5 Ps. And the Sustainable Development Goals are also known as a Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Well, we now have about 8 years before actually looking at what we were able to achieve by then. But this is also one of the tools that United Nations has launched on September 25th in 2015. And it addresses 17 specific goals that were determined as part of the new Sustainable Development Agenda. And these goals shall be pursued within the next at that moment was 15 years, but as I said, now we only have 8 more years to go. And this provides a toolkit. This also provides a very clear pathway to what the world should look like by the end of 2013. And UN Sustainable Development Goals is something that we hear these days pretty much everywhere, because it is not only a framework that we can use, but it is also up to different types of organizations, individual governments all across the globe to actually create their own pathways to achieving these kind of goals. And it also provides a tool on how we can measure some of the goals and impacts that we were able to achieve by then. It's a very ambitious agenda. Probably you may think that it is very unlikely that we will be able to achieve all of those goals, but yet again, it is very important to have a very clear set of objectives that the world should be aiming to going in the next decades, so to say. But let's take a look, and we're not going too much into deep into detail. You can always find this information. It is pretty much available everywhere. But this is where, for example, when it comes to addressing urban challenges, this may become also quite instrumental in the way you try to address some of the issues that you are dealing with, and perhaps use this as an impact framework that will help you to self-assess yourself against some of these areas and dimensions of UN Sustainable Development Goals. But before, again, we will dig deeper into the definitions. Actually, another thing that I also wanted to touch upon, and just to show why the social aspect is so important, is just to take a look at, for us, for what worries the world. I mean, this is also something that we are very much concerned with when we talk about social innovation, social entrepreneurship, because the overall idea is to be addressing a very concrete pressing issue. And just again, to show how important it is for us to care about social to start with, and then social innovation and social entrepreneurship is just by also looking at what actually concerns people, very normal, regular citizens all across the globe. And this is what an institution called IPSOS is dealing with, is that they pretty much look at 28 countries worldwide, and they conduct a monthly based survey about the most worrying concerns that the citizens may have all across the globe. And these global concerns have seemed to decline over since 2010. However, the 5 top priorities for the next few decades as a long-term trends at that time were financial, political corruption, unemployment, poverty, social inequality, crime and violence, and healthcare. But this is just also for us, again, to ask ourselves, what does worry us really? What is it that we as normal society care the most about? And whilst we know that there are many different pressing issues all over the world, it's very interesting for us to see what actually not policymakers, but perhaps normal communities all across the globe are concerned with. And now that whilst I'm showing you some of the projection from 2010 all the way to 2018, now I would like to show to you what the top global concerns over the past 2 years have been looking like. So taking a look at what was going on from August 2020 to August 2022. And here again, surprise, surprise, of course, you may see that the coronavirus have started as one of the biggest concerns. But luckily now that we more or less found a way on how to deal with this situation, with this very global force actually that basically swapped the entire world. We now see that now that we have more or less a way to deal with that, the coronavirus concerns have dropped. But given all of the political and war situations taking place here in Europe, but also in Middle East and other parts in the world, we see that inflation is becoming the top concern for the 5th consecutive month, while some countries see worry still as rising for COVID-19. But what does it say is that, of course, it all depends again on this interconnectivity that we're all dealing with worldwide, globally, locally, but also all across the globe. Whilst, for example, crime and violence shows a very steady trend, what we see is that the inflation as a direct consequence of what is going on, for example, in Ukraine, affects us pretty much all across the globe. And of course, already ongoing financial crisis also plays a big role in this. Again, this is just to, I guess, give you a food for thought so that you can just ask yourself, what actually worries me in my own personal context, but also what is the main word perhaps in my city when it comes to urban development, or perhaps just quite generally in terms of some of the environmental development and social development. again, this is just to show you why social is actually important and why should we care about it so much, and why is it also that we're talking about social innovation and social entrepreneurship as a potential pathway and tool to solve some of those issues. So now let's finally take a look at what social innovation actually means. And I would like to kick this off with a video that I hope will also provide you with a good overview of what this could potentially mean. All right, let's take a look.
What if you could get rid of your kitchen garbage at the push of a button? Meet Lomi, new revolutionary kitchen appliance.
Apologies for that.
We live in systems, on a planet, in a country, in an environment both natural and man-made, in a region, city, town, neighborhood, family. We have created systems to help us, like government, justice, education, health, economy, transportation. Many have benefited from the systems we have created, but some have been left out, isolated and vulnerable. Poverty, homelessness, addictions, unemployment, discrimination. Our natural systems have been seriously damaged too. Endangered species, loss of biodiversity, ozone depletion. Our systems have created complex problems that require novel system solutions if we and our planet are to survive and thrive. Social innovation.
So what is it really, social innovation? Again, that was just a very brief, swift introduction into the complexity of issues that we're dealing with. But more than anything, I guess this is just a tool for us to use when it comes to solving some of the issues. And social innovation often requires some very systemic change. And what it really means is that it really does need some very strong collective action. And I think, again, the urban development and solving some of the urban challenges is a great example of where we see that the collaboration and systemic change is actually needed from many different parties involved. And that requires really a very planned, but also well-balanced collective action from different stakeholders that may use some of the assets and strengths that they may have. Then again, let's just take a look at some of the common definitions that are available. Let's start with European Commission. So social innovations, as defined by the European Commission, are the new ideas that meet social needs, create social relationships, and form new collaborations. These innovations can be products, services, or models addressing unmet needs more effectively. OECD, social innovation can concern conceptual process or product change, organizational change, and changes in financing, and can deal with new relationships with stakeholders and territories. And let's just also take a look at Stanford Social Innovation Review, one of the most reputable journals in the area that publishes on the topic of social innovation, both in terms of practice and research. So they consider as one of the common definitions that social innovation is a novel solution to a social problem that is more effective, efficient, sustainable, or just than existing solutions, and for which the value created accrues primarily to society as a whole, rather than private individuals. So what are we seeing here is that social innovation is very much an umbrella definition for all potential new ideas that could help to address very concrete social need, but it also requires forming new social relationships and forming new collaborations. And what we really are talking here about is not only impact that is being created for the direct beneficiaries who may benefit from this solution directly, but also for the society at large. So when we're talking about social innovation, it's very important to talk about the impact that it may be creating and how it affects not only those people or social groups that the social innovation is being created for, but also what are those long-term impacts that this solution may create for the society at large, or some of the bigger territories that it may be affecting, but also some of those relationships that have been formed. Let's take a more systematic view. So when we're talking about social innovation, effectively, we're talking about innovation that is social. So what the innovativeness of all of that actually means. So when we talk about innovation, we always consider innovation both as a process, but also as a result that is being created as part of this process, which is product or service. And practically, this involves three main characteristics. First, we're talking about novelty. So the innovation should be new to the user context, or actually new and novel in its application. It leads to the improvement in one or the other way. So outcome must be more effective and efficient than existing alternatives. And we're also talking about sustainability, both in terms of the process that it creates, but also as well as the products and services that are being developed as a result of it. And what the social element actually means in this context. So here we're talking about addressing social problems and challenges that are currently unmet. Also, it is very much about creating and sustaining social value rather than just private or financial value. And it pretty much involves three main characteristics. So it's about the satisfaction of those very concrete human needs that otherwise have been ignored. It is also about empowerment of individuals and the groups. Remember what we just talked about when we were talking about forming new relationships and forming new collaborations. Here, it's also very important to emphasize that it is indeed about empowerment of some of the social groups. And effectively, it leads to change of social relations as a primary objective, because this is what the social innovation is supposed to be leading to, not only solving the problem, but also solving it that way that it changes the existing relations and it leads to some sustainable development in terms of pretty much preventing for that social need to be occurring again in the future. One of the interesting projects that I have been involved in is Tomorrow's Land, and we've been exploring the future of social innovation, and we were trying to understand what social innovation means now and could potentially mean also going forward. And as we were interviewing different types of experts, running focus groups, talking to social entrepreneurs, talking to students, talking to really to different kinds of citizens who are involved in social aspects of activism, entrepreneurship in one or the other way. And we've been asking a question, what actually social innovation means to them? And here I would like to provide you with some, with yet again, interesting angle on how social innovation could be, how it could be considered. So one of the aspects or one of the dimensions that we were able to uncover was the intention. So social innovation should benefit society from new solutions. Social innovation is an opportunity to create new solutions to address social needs and challenges currently left unmet. It is created with an intention to meet a social need and to solve a specific problem for applying a novel solution in a beneficial way. It is also about the flexibility. So remember when we talked about the level of novelty. So innovativeness of social innovation is flexible. It should be novel in a very specific setting where it has been developed, but it does not necessarily have to be entirely revolutionary, but it should show a degree of novelty to those involved in the given context and particularly its implementation. Social innovation is a bottom-up process or initiative. So the way it is being initiated is also quite important in terms of how we look at the process of social innovation. Social innovation most commonly is being initiated by individuals or a group of individuals in communities. This results in new ideas that can be taken up by other stakeholders, such as politicians, policymakers, and further specific institutions. And its roots are rather bottom-up rather than top-down. And then the question is, what role do policymakers actually play? I guess for them, it is more so to make sure that they keep publishing and keep making everyone aware of some of those pressing social concerns that the world may have, playing a role of this, playing a role of an institution that will make everyone aware of some of the most pressing political agendas that we are faced with. Again, just making back a reference of what we have discussed at the beginning of this session when we were looking at what we have as part of the agenda in European Union, but also what the United Nations has as the agenda by the end of 2030. It is also to some extent about the informality. So social innovation is often a result of informal actions. So social innovations often emerge in organic actions and processes. Social innovators initiate social innovations through identifying a need and opportunities for action, as well as recognizing the right time for undertaking this initiative. It is not that it is very much institutionalized process. This process is quite informal in a sense that it is more so organic. You identify the need and then you try to solve that need and address that need through some of the actions that may come together quite organically through forming new relationships and through also addressing some of those issues collectively with perhaps other stakeholders involved. Integration. Social innovation should ideally integrate commercial and social values. So this is where we will be making a little reference back to social entrepreneurship, and soon you will see why and how. But social innovation is about integrating commercial and social value. For social innovations to become sustainable, it's also very important to have this more or less commercial or financial base or resource base. Social innovations can generate turnover while creating social impact. This means that both commercial and social values can be complementary to each other. And it's all about engagement. So social innovation arises from and engages beneficiaries. This is something that we have already discussed, but here I would like to emphasize another important aspect of such engagement and forming new relationships. So social innovations emerge from and remain with the beneficiaries. It is about addressing the social needs of those people, and it is usually developed with those people, and it should be, because only through engaging the ones who are directly affected by the problem, one would be able to create an effective solution for that. And this is why it is extremely important to make sure that social innovation process involves the participation of society and the community. Now we're getting to the next point. What actually is social entrepreneurship now that we were able to take a look at different aspects of social innovation? What we know these days is that we don't know what the future would look like. It is unknowable, but it can be shaped. And the increasing rate of change in our societies in different countries all across the world means that the entrepreneurial and creative mindsets are going to be increasingly necessary. And this is where we're talking more so about entrepreneurialism, entrepreneurial mindset, and entrepreneurial thinking and acting. But let's also take a look what the actual aspect of social entrepreneurship actually means. And here I would like to present you with a quote of Bill Drayton, a founder of Ashoka Foundation, one of the biggest foundations around across the globe that supports social entrepreneurs and supports social innovation. And the way he defines social entrepreneurs is that he believes that these are the individuals with innovative solutions to society's most pressing social and cultural and environmental challenges. They are system-changing entrepreneurs. And from deep within them, social entrepreneurs are committed to the good of all. Does it sound very familiar to you? Well, this is indeed something that we have been already looking at today. It has a reference, very clear reference of social innovation in it. So social entrepreneurs are those individuals that are solving very concrete challenge through social entrepreneurship, through creating a social enterprise. And they are also considered as system-changing entrepreneurs. But what's the difference then between social innovation and social entrepreneurship? But before digging into that, let's then again also take a more so systematic view of what social entrepreneurship really is in a nutshell. So first aspect is the social and sociality, social and environmental focus of social entrepreneurship through the creation of public goods and positive externalities. So social entrepreneurship focuses on solving those social issues and environmental issues. It is also about, again, level of innovation. So entrepreneurs use social entrepreneurship as a specific tool, and they are willing to bring these new ways of doing things to fruition, to exploit change as an opportunity for creating a business. And this is where I hope it becomes a little bit more clear that social entrepreneurship is practically using social innovation as a pathway to solving an issue through creating a business. But market orientation is also a very important aspect when we talk about social entrepreneurship. And it includes a variety of different forms possible. It might as well be for-profit social enterprise, which operates in commercial markets and generates profits to reinvest in the social mission. But it might as well be non-profit social enterprise that practically just has a business model that allows them to create those externalities to the beneficiaries directly. When we talk about entrepreneurship and versus social entrepreneurship, I think the important aspect is about financing an enterprise, because effectively, if we are pretty much trying to create a business that benefits the society, how can we make sure that this business is sustainable? When we're talking about business-focused entrepreneurs, it is more so about the balance between market demand and revenue streams. And when we talk about different financial streams that they can be using and different ways to finance the enterprise, traditionally we would talk about seed funding, debt financing, government subsidies, equity investments. It might as well be business angels or VC. But what about social entrepreneurs? How can they create revenue streams when the main objective that they're trying to pursue is actually to create a social value? How can they make sure that they generate enough revenue and attract enough investment to cover their costs and grow their social activities? But the good news is that these days, it is all about creating a well-balanced business model, which also means that it is possible to find ways to create those revenue streams, but also to create the financial base. I'm not saying that it is not challenging. All I'm saying is that it is possible. But that's not the point of today's presentation, to go into aspects of social business model. It's more so for me to show you that there are ways to finance a social enterprise, and as opposed to what is existing for business entrepreneurs. All those financial means can also be applied to social entrepreneurs. But for social entrepreneurs, I think the difference is that they would also be getting, or it is possible for them to get, for example, something like a loan guarantee by philanthropists. There is also things such as a quasi-equity investment, something that is particularly interesting for social entrepreneurs to explore. We're also looking these days into many different types of social impact bonds that are being offered. There are specific types of investment that particularly invest into impact. but there are also plenty of program-related grants. You may find this interesting if you are also focusing on the urban development, that there are some interesting programs for you to look at that would particularly be concerned by social entrepreneurship that specifically focuses on solving some urban challenges as well. And last but not least, again, just to understand the difference between social entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship. When we talk about social entrepreneurship, we also practically talk about different types of orientations. So both are social entrepreneurs, but one is more business oriented and another one is more socially oriented. And when we say orientation, it's just more so to show how it has been initiated, because in the end of the day, both would be concerned about making money and doing good. But how does this really happen? So let's take a look at the business-oriented entrepreneurs. So they have an understanding of the business solution. And when we look at the socially oriented entrepreneurs, we see that they have a very clear understanding of a social problem. What they both need is that for business-oriented entrepreneur, it would be the development of sustainability model that will also help them to address some of the social issues whilst they already have a very good understanding of the business solution. Whereas for the socially oriented entrepreneur, it would be more so the development of a business model that will help them to achieve the social solution that they are currently working on. And often that happens is that when we talk about business-oriented entrepreneurs, they are more so motivated by ideas and the problems, whereas for socially oriented entrepreneurs, it is also about the problem, but they are working directly with beneficiaries that they are trying to benefit through the solutions that they're trying to create. Remember what we were discussing, that social entrepreneurship as well as social innovation should be close to the people that they creating the solution for. So this is, I guess, what it is also all about. In the end of the day, we're talking about social entrepreneurs. The one, it would just be someone who decides to apply their business skills to solve a social problem. And the other one would be someone whose belief in social cause inspired them to become more entrepreneurial and more business oriented in that sense. These are two examples that I'm not going to show you right now, but I would like to urge you to take a look yourself and ask yourself, now that we have been through some of the very important definitions in the context of social innovation and social entrepreneurship, take a look at those examples. One is amazing highway billboard that makes drinking water out of the thin air. And the other example is the dancing traffic light mannequin by Smart. I have chosen these examples because I do believe they have a direct connection to urban development or regional development. So hopefully you will be able to make that connection as well, just to make it more relatable to the context that you are working with. And second, I have selected this example specifically because I would like you, after watching this video, to ask yourself a question. Who is who? Is it social innovation or is it social entrepreneurship? Or maybe it is even something else. Now that we have been discussing for a good 40 minutes what social innovation and social entrepreneurship is, please just take a look at those. I hope you will enjoy them. And then again, just ask yourself a question. Do you actually see the difference? Do you know, can you recognize who is who and what is it that they're trying to achieve? So just as you will be watching this presentation, just pause for a second and just watch these videos and try to ask yourself this question, because it is going to be very needed a bridge for us to then make a conclusion that it is not the same thing. So social innovation and social entrepreneurship, those are pretty much different concepts. Let's just summarize very quickly. Social entrepreneurship is solving a social problem through business, while social innovation is solving a problem through a number of different mediums and on different levels. Social entrepreneurship is about the businesses that create social value, whereas social innovation is about innovative process that creates the social value. When we talk about social entrepreneurship, we talk about businesses, we talk about enterprises that can also create social innovation or use social innovation, but they also use a bundle of other different strategies and business models to raise their businesses and to solve the problem. Whereas social innovation can also emerge outside the scope of the social entrepreneurship. So it is not only about the business, or it shouldn't be. It is also about involving the governments. It may happen at many different sectors. It might as well be public, non-profit, or private. And the last but not least, social entrepreneurs are personally motivated to improve people's lives through a business, whereas social innovation, and as a social innovator, would decide about whether a social enterprise is the way for them to go. What it really means is that social entrepreneurship is recognized as a subset of social innovation, whereby social entrepreneurs are seen as a means to the end of the innovation that have a potential to deliver a social innovation through a social enterprise. Let's unpack this a little bit. So what it really means is that social entrepreneurship is a pathway to social innovation. And social innovation is a very big umbrella definition that also includes social entrepreneurship as a potential way to create this innovation, a solution to a social problem. Why we've been talking about it for the past 45 minutes is because I think it is important just to know what you're dealing with and what is it that you're trying to achieve when specifically you are dealing with the context that you're working with. Let's take again the example of urban development and solving urban challenges. If you believe that you can create a business model that can benefit and also solve some of the urban challenges, excellent. That means that perhaps if you are successful, you can consider yourself social entrepreneur. But also, I think it is about addressing some of the key and more pressing and complex issues, such as, for example, perhaps solving the lack of water, or solving some of the more pressing architectural urban problems in the regions that require more than just one small business that can help to solve that issue by providing a solution. Then it requires a collective metropolitan collaboration that would involve many different stakeholders. And this is where the most so systemic changes probably need. And that also requires creating some social relations and collaborations within the city. And this is where I think it's fair to say that we are practically embarking into social innovation kind of process, where we try to engage different types of stakeholders into solving a very concrete social need that will lead to a long-term impact as well. So this is just, I guess, a lens for you to look into what you're trying to do, and also to give you an understanding of what in the end of the day, the difference between social entrepreneurship and social innovation is. In the end of the day, both of them are all about creating a social value and social good. But then again, this is just about the way you utilize them as tools and pathways to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Before we will close this off today, I would also like to say a few words about social innovation process. Pretty much by now, you would all be familiar with design thinking process. And I think, and just to make it a bit easier for everybody, because this is such a well-recognized concept, I would like to take this process also as a way for us to understand where the social can be embedded and how can we look at social innovation process from the design thinking perspective. So we all know that when we talk about design thinking, the process starts with creating empathy What empathy really means is that it is important for us to understand people and their needs within the context of design challenge. But why we're doing this is because we are trying to understand their explicit and implicit needs in order to meet them through designing this particular solution. In terms of social innovation, this practically means that if we look at design thinking as a social innovation process, it would mean that in the empathy phase, it is a particularly crucial phase because it is for us to understand the social needs of people, those beneficiaries who are creating the solution for, and the communities that surround this group of people who we are trying to benefit from the solution that we are designing as part of the social innovation process. When we talk about definition, it is about sense making, more or less, when we try to craft a meaningful and actionable problem. Again, this is very important for social innovation because this is the phase where we have to explicitly define what we as designers of a social solution are striving to address. In the ideation phase, as the phase suggests, it is about generating a range of ideas to the problem statement defined. When we talk about innovation, or it might as well be social innovation, it is about increasing the innovation potential by stepping beyond the obvious solutions and changing the perspectives. Then we step into the prototyping, not going to comment on that much. I guess it is very clear. It is about creating, prototyping, reiterating, and all about being in touch with those groups that we are creating the solutions for. And this is also about getting this feedback, because after you have tested the prototype, it is very important to understand what this actually means for beneficiaries and what kind of feedback they are able to give you as a designer of the solution. Why is it important for social innovation? Because it is also provides the designer with another chance to receive feedback and refine and improve the actual solution. But in the end of the day, then again, going back to the process of social innovation, when we were discussing the point of how important it is to actually create a systemic change in the end, as soon as you have the solution that has been designed throughout the process, and we've been through all the steps, starting from the empathy and understanding the problem, definition of the problem, defining the solutions, and then creating the solutions, it is also about ultimately creating a systemic change. It usually involves the interaction of many elements. It's all about creating social movements, different types of business models, also potentially even laws and regulations, and utilizing different kinds of data and listening to that data, and entirely new ways of thinking and doing. And it builds upon new frameworks and architectures made up of many small social innovations. Maybe just to give you an example, because when we talk about social innovation and social entrepreneurs, just to close this off, I actually would like to perhaps throw at you some very simple examples that you can think about when you think about the process of social innovation and when you think about social entrepreneurship. One of the simple examples would be the discovery of electricity, and the actually electricity being this huge global innovation that entirely changed the way the world works. Just think about it. The invention of electricity practically meant that pretty much all aspects of the lives of people have been completely reshaped, and it had a global influence on pretty much everyone all across the globe. Not immediately, all people were able to benefit from that, and this is why it was important to redefine some of the existing structures and architectures, but effectively, through then creating also new types of collaborations, rethinking the way certain ways of living actually work, we were able to bring the electricity to pretty much everywhere. And that happened so many decades ago that up until today, it influences the entire world. This, I guess, a very big example of social innovation. But another example of social innovation that is still debatable, though, could be a blockchain. Again, we do not even quite know yet what the impact of blockchain could be, but as some propagators suggest, it may have also a pretty much huge impact on pretty much every aspect of our life, because what we practically create is the trust process whereby we take out the middleman. So we already see how the financial industry is being redesigned and redefined by the introduction of different types of currencies that are based on blockchain. But there is also a possibility to use the blockchain as a tool for some of the political situations all across the globe, to use this as a way to communicate and so on and so forth. Again, if you are interested, just read a little bit more on that, just to see maybe what is your opinion and whether or not blockchain could potentially be perceived of social innovation. But it most certainly does have some promise in terms of if applied correctly, that it may also redefine some of the ways that we've been used to. And when we talk about social entrepreneurs, I guess some of the examples that come directly to my mind would be such enterprises such as Patagonia. I guess everyone is aware of that clothing brand. And what they practically do is that, well, first of all, they utilize sustainable materials in creation of their clothing brand, but also they give away part of the revenues they make back to the communities to support some of the social issues, so to say. This is a very big example, but I think if you will Google simply, can you please give me smaller examples of social entrepreneurs, you will find a bunch that will provide you a very good understanding of how social entrepreneurship could be perceived these days. Normally, I would have invited a guest speaker, a social entrepreneur who would be able to share a story. And normally that would be a few guest speakers. And one of them is a social entrepreneur who has created a sustainable chocolate brand. And this chocolate brand utilizes the cacao beans that come directly from farmers and not from this large corporation who basically underutilize all of those farming communities all across the globe. For him, it is more so important to make sure that then again, he cuts the middleman and work in a very transparent supply chain. And this is what makes this particular enterprise a social enterprise. So, it's not like in case of Patagonia that they gave away part of their revenues back to society. It's not about the way or they are providing back the financial means. It is more so about how they work with the supply chain. So then again, this is just one of the examples. And just to sum this up, I think one other thing that I thought could potentially be interesting for you to further explore, if you are not yet familiar with, this is generally the human-centered design approach, where this social design thinking is also embedded as part of it. But I think if you are creating the solutions for the city, it is also important to make sure that those solutions are human-centered, and that you know how exactly you can listen to some of the problems and you define those problems in the right way, and you also invite the right people to be part of the process. Because effectively, when we talk about creating social solutions, it is about balancing elements such as desirability, viability, but also feasibility. And this is where the most valuable design practically lies when it comes to creating solutions, either through social innovation process or through creating a social enterprise. That would be it from me. I wish I would have this opportunity to talk to you actually in person. So, but nonetheless, I hope you will find this little introduction into these topics useful. if there are any questions that you would like to address to me directly, just reach out to me, please. And yeah, needless to say, I hope you will find the program very useful for yourself. And hopefully you can also connect to some other like-minded individuals. And yeah, that would be it from me. I hope you will enjoy your learning journey.